Hey everyone, welcome to the Retire While You Work podcast, hosted here by Adam's Wealth Partners. I'm Myles, a wealth advisor here on the team, joined by Carson, another wealth advisor here on the team, and Jeri Anne, our director of operations. We're going to be starting a series of what we think is going to be a pretty fun topic here today. It's something that we get quite a few requests on from our clients, and that's going to be financial planning for young adult children and helping them with some steps and actionable items to get them going in the right direction. Like I said, a topic that comes up quite often. Not a whole lot of education around this topic for young adults. And so we just wanted to shed some light. Again, it's going to be a series that we are going to work on and expand upon probably for the next month or so, for a few weeks here. And so we're excited about it. So anything you guys want to add to just young adults, financial planning in general?
I was just going to say that this has actually really been a hot topic in my house since I do have young adults. And I mean, my son, who's 20, was just saying the other day, they're not teaching me anything in school that shit tells me about insurance, how to buy a house, how to buy a car, credit scores, all that kind of stuff. And he's right. There is no real class for that.
Yeah. I always say, I think in high school, I think we learned for maybe a week how to balance a checkbook was
right.
The topic that we did. I mean, then you figure you go to college and, if you're somebody who maybe wasn't fortunate enough that your parents are helping you out, you're just kind of thrown into this world on taking on a bunch of debt to go to school and trying to pay bills. And it's something you've never done before.
Yeah. I mean, literally my youngest, he doesn't know how to pay a bill. Like if he bought a car or whatever. I mean, I feel like I would have to help him get set up to do auto pay and all that kind of stuff. They just don't totally understand it.
Yeah, completely.
I think for myself, what I learned through school was just because I had a natural interest in the subject. Therefore, I would look stuff up if I found it interesting or find websites or videos that would teach me about, a certain subject related to personal finance. But the actual education system largely failed in teaching the subject of taxes and accounting, finances, bank accounts, credit cards, you name it. There wasn't a single time that I look back where I was taught those things.
Yeah, no.
I mean, to your point, you only learned about it because you had an interest in it, not because it was
not everybody has
proactive education.
But it still matters to every single person, even regardless of whether or not you have an interest in it or not. So it's very applicable for sure.
It's like when you graduate college, you're walking around campus and all of a sudden there's these stands set up for people offering you credit cards and they don't know what's the interest rate, what happens if I don't pay it. I mean, there's a lot of things they can learn that they're just, no one has taught them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good thing they prioritize learning the Pythagorean theorem over filing your taxes. No, but good subjects to walk through. And I don't know if we'll get to taxes on one of the subjects that we go through here. But it looks like the first subject and kind of what we're going to go through today is doing some savings. So saving for your first big goal, whatever that is. It could be paying down debt. It could be saving up money to down payment on a house, buying a car, you name it.
College. Probably college for a lot of people, maybe.
Yep. And if you're past that stage, then there's still some big things. First house, that could be, big priorities you're wanting to accomplish. So I don't know. I'll just kind of kick things off. One of the things that I feel like is extremely important when it comes to saving for a bigger goal. It's a lot of small steps that accumulate to accomplishing this goal. It's not going to happen overnight. It's just like if someone's trying to gain weight or lose weight, it's a lot of small decisions that you make every single day that compound on top of one another to ultimately get to the point of your goal, whatever that is. So when it comes to saving a big purchase, write it down. I think that's one of the most underutilized ways to see a goal and help yourself accomplish that is write it down and then track your progress. We've talked about online websites for tracking spending. It can be the same thing for saving. Track your progress and make small decisions towards that goal. Like it might be save $5 a week, like have an automatic transfer in your bank, automatically go into a savings account for it. Do something that's small just to have it automatically occurring and it's out of sight, out of mind. and you don't even have to manually give it any sort of thought. It's just going to be happening in the background.
And a lot of people, a lot of companies will allow you to set up part of your paycheck to go into a different account. So you can automatically set up a savings to go directly from your paycheck where you don't have to think about it or have to say, this month, I don't think I really can afford that. And it just happens automatically and you kind of forget about it.
I was gonna say that too, kind of in combination of both of you. The more you can automate things, I think the better, so that you're not thinking about it. Because I mean, we see it here all the time. If it's somebody will say, "Hey, yep, I'll get with you guys each quarter or a couple times a year and decide how much I want to send to you guys to get invested." And a lot of times we maybe never hear from that person, or they end up saving much less than they would have. Whereas if they would have just said, "Hey, automatically, I'm going to try and send you guys a couple $100 and then set, or 500 or 1,000, whatever the amount might be. And then each quarter, let's get together and try and increase that if we can." That person becomes much more successful because they've already been saving, and usually they'll add something on top of it. And so they're probably saving more than they planned on, because the money they were saving, automatically, they didn't really necessarily see that. I mean, they saw it leaving their account, but they didn't feel it as much as they did if they would have waited for a quarter, and then that was a bigger amount that they're sending to be invested.
Yep. If it's a short-term goal, if it's anywhere inside of 12 months or even 12 to 18 months, I think most of us are going to recommend not to fool with anything stock market related. If you listen to the podcast, we've got 3 buckets of money that we always talk about. Bucket 1 is cash in the bank, which is your emergency fund, plus big goals that you have coming up, money you're going to spend in the next 12 to 18 months. So because of that, your time horizon is extremely short. Therefore, your risk tolerance should also be extremely low. So don't take any risk with this money. If it's a down payment for a house that's coming up soon, or a deposit for rent, or a deposit on a car you're going to buy, whatever the case is, keep it in cash. Find a bank account that's yielding a decent interest rate. These days, if you can get anywhere from 3.5% to 4%, that's going to be a great target interest rate. So you can get a little bit of return on the money while it's sitting safely. Don't try to get fancy with it. Don't invest it in something risky. Keep it safe, keep it conservative, and a good high yielding bank account.
And so basically the bottom line is, if you've got a checking account and you're going to start saving, open a savings account with your bank. Check with them on what the rate is. If it's great there, stay there. If not, you can shop around, but definitely have a separate account for that savings. Don't just have a number in your head that you're saving up and let that just accumulate in your checking account. You want to definitely have a separate vehicle that holds that savings.
That's right. Money market, high yield savings account.
Yeah, I think it's I agree on stuff for less than 12, maybe even 24 months, kind of depending on what the goal is and how much you're setting aside. But what do you guys recommend maybe when you're starting to look out 3, maybe even 5 years? Let's say somebody's kind of just graduating college and starting their first job, and maybe they want to buy a house in the next 3 to 5 years. What's the next step when it comes to saving for that type of goal?
That's borderline. It depends on your personal risk tolerance. History shows, even though it's not indicative of what's going to happen in the future, history shows that over a 3 to 5 year period in the stock market, there's a pretty good chance that your return is going to be positive. There's a good chance that over it's somewhere around 90% of 5-year periods in the stock market are positive. And if that's the case, then odds are in your favor that at the end of that 5 years, when you're ready for your goal, you will have made money in the stock market. But just realize that there's also the risk that you could not have made money in the stock market. So a way to balance out that risk is maybe have a portion of your savings going towards stocks, a portion of your savings going towards bonds, kind of like a balanced portfolio, where if on a risk scale at a 1 to 10, maybe it's called a 4 or a 5. So that would be, one way to up your risk tolerance for the potential of better returns than just cash in the bank account. But again, it's all going to depend on your personal risk tolerance.
Like my daughter has an investment account, and she kind of looks at it as her savings for a down payment on a house. So she's investing in bucket 2 and she's putting money in every month, but she's not really aggressive because she does know in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, she's going to be pulling that money out most likely. So, but that's 2 separate ways to save if you have a long-term goal and a short-term goal.
Yep, that was going to be my next question. What about if somebody has maybe 2 or 3 goals they're trying to check off? Like maybe they need to get a new car, they want to save for a house, and then maybe they're getting married sometime soon and they need to help cover some of the costs. So like
Wow, you got to save a lot.
for young people though, like in this kind of age group we're talking about, it's
Oh, I know.
a possibility that you could have all that going on at the same time. And I think for a lot
Absolutely,
of
yeah.
people it can be overwhelming because maybe maybe the car is the most important because you need that to get to work, and the wedding's also important because that's one of the biggest days of your life. And then you're also thinking you're wasting a bunch of money, which I don't think is necessarily true, but some people start thinking I'm wasting all this money paying all this money in rent, especially if you're in a big city. So it feels like for some people, I can see it feeling like there's 3 goals they all need to accomplish right this second.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's obviously, I think a lot of times there's more than one, and that's where it gets overwhelming. And I think they just kind of think this is too much. I can't afford to save this much, kind of thing. But I don't know. It's just, I think the key is having a budget every month, knowing how much you can afford to save. Maybe you have 3 savings accounts, one for a car, one for my house, one for a vacation, whatever. Put money in each one, break it up, put more in one, whatever you want. There's no right or wrong answer, but save in all 3 of those.
Fully recommend that. My comment was going to be look, and if wherever you have a bank account, if it doesn't cost anything, an annual maintenance fee to have another savings account, open another one. It's not too big of a deal to have 2 or 3 savings account if it helps you for mental accounting. Or my bank that I use online allows you to have buckets inside of a savings account. So I can sit here and have one savings account, and I can have one bucket as my emergency fund, another bucket as another goal that I might have. Banks are pretty intelligent these days with what they can allow you to do for the online accounting of the different savings accounts, but don't open up another account. Why not, if it helps you with the mental accounting of it?
I do feel like savings also, there needs to be that emergency fund bucket, even though you're trying to save up for a car, you're trying to save up for a house, you're trying to save up for whatever. There's still going to be things that come up. You're still going to have to get new tires on your car. You're still going to have to do things that cost, $1,000 or more that you just may not have sitting around because you're using your income, you're putting in your other savings buckets. So just keep that in mind too, that there's going to be a little bit of money coming out of there every year, probably for unexpected emergencies.
Yeah. And I was going to say, just like set realistic goals also. Like if you're looking to buy a house, just because your friends are moving into, a neighborhood that you maybe think's a little bit nicer, doesn't mean you have to move into that same neighborhood as them. Because if you're living in a house that you can't afford, you're going to be more miserable and stressed about it, thinking about the mortgage payment every month. Maybe you live in a neighborhood close by. So I think just setting realistic expectations and being flexible in your plans to where you're not, so strict on things that you feel like you have to live in this neighborhood or you have to get your car. Maybe you, instead of buying a new car, you get a used car and save a little bit of money there. So I think you can go at it from that angle to where the plan is just flexible. Not everything needs to be set in stone because life just isn't set in stones. To Jeri Anne's point, there's unexpected stuff that's going to pop up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah. Don't get discouraged if one month, doesn't go exactly as you planned on it going. If there's anything I've learned, especially with kids, there is never a normal month when it comes to a budget. So just take it and keep on keeping on, make it better the next month and try to save and get back on a consistent schedule. It's not about, being perfect throughout the journey of saving for a goal. It's about making as many of those small decisions towards that goal as you can, even if sometimes, a month hurts or a big expense comes up and you have to prioritize that over the savings. So.
And I think just being honest with yourself and doing check-ins, at least maybe monthly, setting some sort of like recurring meeting time with yourself or your spouse or your family, and just, checking in to say, hey, here's where I wanted to be at the end of this quarter. Maybe ahead, maybe you're behind, but just so you know where you're at and not just guessing where you're at with things. I think
Right.
being able to do the check-ins is a big helpful thing that gets overlooked a lot of the time.
And having those check-ins and having a budget and reviewing all that stuff is also going to probably bring to light some things that you're spending money on that you don't necessarily need to spend money on. It can bring up, I mean, a lot of people have subscriptions to things they don't even realize anymore. Maybe you're going to Starbucks every day. I mean, maybe there's certain things that you realize, wow, if I just knocked this off or whatever, I could save a little bit more.
I've never wasted money. So tell me what that's like to waste money, Jeri. Just kidding. I think the stat is, what is it? It takes like $13 of wasteful spending a day to add up to $5,000. It's like $13.65 a day of wasteful spending
for a year,
for the year. A small little Amazon purchase or a Starbucks order. You do that every day for a year. That's $5,000 that can go down the drain. Which that's, in my mind, if there's a spot that I'm not very good at, it's the cheaper Amazon stuff where it's like, oh, okay, it's only $12 or something like that.
Right.
That's the easiest buy now for me to do, but that's a bad thing when it's the easiest thing to do because it can add up.
Yeah, it is easy. They make it easy for you.
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
Anything else? I think that's a good first topic to get us going with this. I think this is going to be a pretty good series that we're going to try and put together here, at least for some sort of resource for our clients who have been asking for this and way to
so if you have
share with their
kids that are,
kids share with their kids and have them listen in. And so we have a list of topics, but if anybody out there listens to this and wants to hear something or has a good thought for us, please send it over. You can send it to myself, Myles at adamswealthpartners.com, and we'll put it on the agenda to discuss. But thanks for joining us again today, and looking forward to continuing this series.
See you next time.
Any opinions are those of myself and not necessarily those of Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information contained in these podcasts do not purport to be a complete description of the securities market or developments referred to in this material. The information has been obtained from sources considered to be reliable, but we do not guarantee that the foregoing material is accurate or complete. Every investor situation is unique, and you should consider your investment goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon before making any investment. Prior to making an investment decision, please consult with your financial advisor about your individual situation. Any hypothetical examples are for illustration purposes only. Actual investor results will vary. Raymond James does not provide legal or tax services. Please discuss these matters with the appropriate professional.